Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the Deep Dive, your essential shortcut to being truly well-informed without feeling totally overwhelmed. Today, we're taking a comprehensive look into the most pressing global developments as of July 27th, 2025. Our mission: cut through the noise, give you multiple perspectives, and maybe deliver those real aha moments that clarify how the world works.
And what's really fascinating about today's landscape, I think, is just the sheer breadth of stories that are actively shaping our world right now. We're talking about everything from, urgent humanitarian concerns to pretty significant shifts in international relations and even some groundbreaking public health findings. So our aim is to connect these dots for you, help you understand not just what's happening like on the surface, but the deeper implications and why these events fundamentally matter to all of us.
Right. We're going to begin with some immediate, really high stakes situations, things that are directly impacting lives, and crucially, the flow of information across the globe. And right at the forefront, we have the incredibly challenging situation for journalists working in Gaza, major international news agencies. We're talking the Associated Press, AFP, Reuters, BBC News. They've just put out this rare joint statement.
A joint statement. Wow, that's unusual.
It really is. And they're sounding serious alarms, specifically stating that their staff on the ground are facing the threat of starvation. This unprecedented joint appeal urges Israeli authorities to ensure safe passage and, well, immediate adequate food supplies.
This joint statement, it isn't just a plea for help. It feels like a stark warning about maybe the erosion of trust in global media, right? I mean, when the very people tasked with delivering impartial information from a critical conflict zone are themselves struggling for basic needs, it severely compromises their ability to report accurately and without bias.
Exactly. It creates an information vacuum.
Right. And that potentially allows unchecked narratives to dominate. It makes it so much harder for international bodies to respond effectively, or even for the public to push for meaningful change. It really undermines the very foundation of, informed global discourse.
And speaking of Gaza, we've also seen a notable shift in Israel's aid policy. It seems to be a direct response to pretty intense international pressure about these widespread famine warnings.
What kind of shift?
Well, the new measures include immediate aid airdrops and also daily 10-hour tactical pauses. These are supposed to allow UN convoy access to designated areas. But here's where the narrative gets incredibly complex. The Israeli military is actively denying that starvation even exists, which directly contradicts numerous reports from the UN and Gaza health officials about rising deaths due to lack of food and medicine.
That really highlights the immense complexity of tracking a major humanitarian crisis in real time, especially when you have such starkly conflicting narratives coming from key players. This discrepancy between military statements and the reports from humanitarian groups makes it incredibly difficult for anyone outside to fully grasp the precise reality on the ground and, frankly, the genuine effectiveness of these aid efforts.
Yeah, it raises huge questions.
It really does. Questions about information verification in these high-stakes environments and, let's be honest, the political implications of acknowledging or denying widespread famine.
And adding another layer to this whole aid situation, the Israeli Navy recently intercepted an aid flotilla, specifically a ship called the Handala, which was heading for Gaza but still in international waters.
Intercepted it. What happened?
They boarded the vessel, detained all 21 activists and journalists who were on board. This action just unequivocally underscores Israel's longstanding and very strict maritime blockade policy on Gaza. It shows persistent enforcement.
Right. And this incident is such a powerful reminder of that whole ongoing debate around maritime blockades, especially in humanitarian contexts. Israel maintains the blockade is for security reasons, but critics argue it impedes essential aid and potentially violates international law regarding civilian populations in conflict zones.
It's a tough balance.
It is. And intercepting the Handala really highlights the strategic importance of sea access to Gaza and just how difficult it is to deliver aid when these kinds of policies are so rigorously enforced. It directly impacts the aid organizations, the workers on the ground.
Okay, let's shift our focus now to another tense regional situation. Heavy fighting between Cambodia and Thailand has tragically continued for a fourth day.
Still ongoing. That's terrible news.
Yeah, the death toll is now over 30. And the displacement numbers are just staggering, over 168,000 people forced from their homes. And what's particularly striking here is the sharp contrast between the diplomatic efforts and the reality on the ground. Despite a U.S. brokered agreement for ceasefire talks that were actually scheduled for today, July 27th, military commanders on both sides are still reporting fresh attacks.
Wow. So this conflict, which is rooted in those long-standing border disputes, like around the Priya Vihira temple, it's still a really significant and deeply concerning regional military issue. The fact that talks are supposed to be happening while fighting actually escalates, well, it just underscores the immense difficulty of translating diplomatic agreements into an immediate stop to hostilities, especially when local commanders and ground forces are still engaged.
It seems disconnected.
It really does. And this ongoing instability, it doesn't just impact the lives of hundreds of thousands directly, it also poses a threat to broader regional stability, could potentially even draw in other ASEAN nations.
And speaking of instability, we've also seen a deadly gun attack on a courthouse in Zahedan, Iran. At least 6 people killed, 20 wounded. This was on July 26th.
Zahedan, that's in Sistan-Baluchistan province.
Exactly, a
Yeah.
region that's unfortunately been grappling with a complex mix of militancy and organized crime for a while now, particularly near its borders.
Yeah, that's a volatile area. An attack like this there suggests possibly an escalation of internal security threats for the Iranian regime. Incidents like these can divert critical resources, attention away from their regional foreign policy agenda. It forces them to focus more on domestic containment. Plus, they risk increasing local discontent and could maybe signal deeper socioeconomic or even ethnic grievances simmering beneath the surface in that strategically vital border region, especially given how close it is to Afghanistan and Pakistan.
Right, so if we kind of broaden our lens now to the bigger picture, many of today's headlines really illuminate how countries are grappling with intense internal pressures while at the same time trying to redefine their place on the global stage. Take Malaysia, for instance. We've seen massive protests erupting in Kuala Lumpur, tens of thousands demanding Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim step down.
Yeah, I saw that. What's driving it mainly?
The public anger seems multifaceted, but it's largely stemming from the rising cost of living and also a palpable frustration over unfulfilled reform promises, things that were central to his election platform.
Ah, okay, so it's that combination. These protests are a really powerful reminder of how quickly public pressure can build and, influence elected leaders when economic challenges hit people hard. And the government's preemptive response, the cash handouts, fuel price cuts, clearly attempts to placate anger, but obviously haven't been enough to quell this widespread discontent, raises questions about long-term political stability for the current administration.
Definitely something to watch. Now, shifting to a really fascinating societal debate, the Philippines is currently considering a, pretty controversial bill. It would actually criminalize the neglect of elderly parents.
Criminalize it. Wow, tell me more.
Yeah, this bill has been refiled in their Senate. It proposes actual prison terms for individuals who abandon or fail to adequately support their elderly or incapacitated parents.
That's a huge step. It dives deep into a really complex societal conversation, doesn't it?
About
the
the
balance between traditional family values like filial piety, which is so ingrained in Filipino culture, and the role of the state in ensuring welfare.
It does, but there are exemptions.
Okay, like what?
Well, key exemptions for children who were themselves abused or neglected by their parents, or for those who genuinely just lack the financial means to provide support.
That's crucial context. Still, it's a really progressive and challenging bill. Could set a unique precedent for how a nation defines its collective responsibility towards its aging population, might even influence similar debates in other countries with strong family traditions.
Absolutely. Okay,
Sure.
moving now to global governance, particularly in the ever-evolving tech sphere. China is making a very clear play for global AI leadership.
Oh yeah, how so?
They've proposed a new international cooperation body. This was a significant announcement made at the World AI Conference in Shanghai, and it's directly aimed at shaping future international technology governance.
Interesting. And what's particularly noteworthy about this initiative, I think, is the sheer scale of that conference.
Yeah.
It attracted major Western firms, didn't it? Even with all the ongoing sanctions against China in the tech sector.
It did, which signals China's concerted effort to build an alternative, kind of non-Western-led framework for AI rules and ethical standards. It feels like it's not just about technological advancement, it's a strategic move to assert geopolitical influence and really reshape the global tech order.
Right. Potentially creating a sort of dual system for AI development and governance that could have profound implications for things like data privacy, censorship, control, all sorts of things.
Definitely a significant shift in global tech power dynamics, something we need to keep a close eye on.
I'm sure.
Unfortunately, though, amidst these global shifts, we're also seeing some concerning signs of democratic backsliding in parts of Central Africa. The president of the Central African Republic, Faustin Touadera, announced on July 26th that he intends to seek a controversial third term.
A third term. Wasn't there a referendum about term limits recently?
There was. This decision follows a highly disputed 2023 referendum that controversially removed presidential term limits. Critics widely claim this whole move is designed to consolidate power, and reportedly with significant assistance from Russian mercenary forces.
Yeah, that fits a worrying pattern. It really exemplifies this trend of democratic erosion we're seeing in Central Africa, where leaders seem to manipulate constitutional processes to extend their rule. And it often comes at the expense of political pluralism and stability, leading to increased internal discontent and potentially inviting further external interference.
Right. Now, in the realm of international relations, we're seeing some friction between South American neighbors. Colombia has formally protested Ecuador's unilateral decision to deport Colombian inmates.
Deport inmates. Why?
Well, Colombia has publicly called Ecuador's move an unfriendly gesture and a potential violation of international law. Ecuador's reasoning, though, for expelling some 800 inmates is rooted in its own severe domestic crisis. They've got prison overcrowding, escalating gang violence. It's gripping the nation.
Oh, okay. So while it's motivated by internal pressures, taking such a unilateral action, yeah, that can indeed create significant foreign friction and diplomatic headaches. It raises complex questions about prisoner rights, national sovereignty, and the proper channels for interstate cooperation on criminal justice matters. Really shows how acute domestic issues can quickly spill over into strained international relations.
Absolutely. And another concerning development for democratic processes, this time in Cameroon. The electoral body there has taken the step of barring the main opposition rival from the upcoming presidential election.
Barring the main rival, that sounds problematic.
Yeah, this disqualification of the primary challenger happened on July 26th. And it's widely viewed by critics as a pretty clear measure to ensure the uncontested rule of the incumbent president, Paul Biya, who incredibly has been in power for over 4 decades.
4 decades, wow. Yeah, that decision directly impacts the democratic integrity of an important African nation. When a leading opposition figure is just excluded like that, it significantly narrows the political space, it undermines the credibility of the whole electoral process, and it can lead to heightened political tensions, maybe even unrest. For a country with such a long-serving leader, moves like this are often seen as attempts to stifle dissent and just entrench power. Raises serious questions about the future of multi-party democracy in Cameroon.
It certainly does. But, okay, on a slightly more positive note, maybe, we're witnessing a rare glimmer of diplomacy in the Middle East. For the first time in over 2 decades, Syrian and Israeli officials have actually held direct talks.
Direct talks between Syria and Israel, that is significant.
The meeting took place in Paris on July 26th. And the primary focus, apparently, was on de-escalating the conflict in southern Syria's Sawaida region. A Syrian source even described the dialogue as honest and responsible.
That is genuinely significant, given the, deeply entrenched historical tensions and just the lack of direct engagement between those two nations for so long. The fact that talks are happening at all, even if they're focused on a localized conflict, could signal a kind of pragmatic shift in regional diplomacy. Maybe it's a recognition of shared interests and stability in specific border areas. Could potentially pave the way for broader, albeit probably cautious, diplomatic channels to open up. That would be a substantial development for regional security dynamics.
Leaves you wondering if it's a one-off or maybe the start of something bigger.
Exactly, you have to wonder.
Okay, we're also tracking shifting alliances in the strategically vital Indian Ocean region. India and the Maldives appear to be mending fences. There was a high-level visit.
Right, Modi went there.
Yeah, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi attended the Maldives Independence Day celebrations on July 26th, and that marked a significant diplomatic thaw between the two nations after a period of somewhat strained relations.
Right, things had cooled off a bit. So this visit, following that period, is a clear signal of renewed engagement. And Modi's announcement, new credit lines, launching trade talks, those moves are specifically aimed at strengthening ties. And, crucially, countering China's growing influence in the Indian Ocean.
Ah, the China factor.
Always. For India, a stable and friendly Maldives is vital for its strategic security, its maritime trade routes. This move really demonstrates that ongoing geopolitical maneuvering for influence in a region that's absolutely critical for global shipping and power projection.
Makes sense. Finally, in the realm of domestic governance, back in the U.S., the Postal Service marked its 250th anniversary. And they did it by taking a very firm stance against privatization.
250 years, wow. How did they frame that stance?
Well, the anniversary was celebrated with new commemorative stamps, Benjamin Franklin, a modern mail carrier. But the message from the new Postmaster General was pretty clear. He used this historic occasion to explicitly reject the whole notion of privatizing the USPS, highlighting it as a deeply political and ideological issue.
Interesting. And that connects directly to that broader, longstanding debate we always hear about the role and scope of government services in a modern economy, right? Arguments for privatization often cite, efficiency, cost savings, while opponents emphasize the public service mandate, universal access, and the critical role the USPS plays in connecting literally every American, regardless of how profitable that connection might be.
So this firm stance indicates that debate is far from over.
Not at all. It remains a central point of contention in American public policy.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, I think, as we look at how these global changes are directly impacting our daily lives, our health, and even how societies are expressing their core values. Southern Europe, once again, finds itself ablaze with extreme heat. A severe heat wave is gripping the region. Temperatures consistently exceeding 40 degrees Celsius, that's 104 Fahrenheit, across Greece, Italy, Turkey, Cyprus.
Yeah, those headlines are relentless. And this extreme heat, it's not only fueling dangerous wildfires, forcing thousands of evacuations like in that northern suburb of Athens, right? But it's also triggering widespread public health warnings. The direct physiological impact of sustained high temperatures, especially on vulnerable populations. It leads to increased heat stroke, cardiovascular issues, respiratory problems. It's serious.
It really is.
And this is such an immediate, visible, and unfortunately recurring impact of climate change. It puts immense strain on public services, infrastructure, and severely affects things like tourism and agriculture in the region too.
Now, in a landmark development for climate action, a recent United Nations court opinion on climate change is being hailed as a watershed for justice. Pacific Island nations, in particular, are celebrating this International Court of Justice opinion from July 25th, 26th. It significantly strengthens their legal position on climate change.
That ICJ opinion.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's big. While it's an advisory opinion, so not directly binding in the way a ruling between two states would be, it carries immense legal and moral weight. Leaders are calling it a historic victory for climate justice because it essentially affirms that causing climate harm is unlawful. And, crucially, it implies a legal basis for holding major polluters accountable.
Which is huge for those island nations.
Absolutely huge. For low-lying island nations facing existential threats from rising sea levels, extreme weather, this ruling provides powerful leverage in international negotiations, potential legal challenges. It strengthens the argument for loss and damage compensation, and it significantly bolsters the legal framework for future climate action and accountability, really, globally.
Okay, and on a deeply crucial note concerning public health now, a major new study has established a significant link between long-term air pollution and the risk of dementia.
Oh, wow. Dementia, what kind of link?
This was an extensive Cambridge University study. They meticulously analyzed data from over 29 million people. Huge data set. And the striking finding is genuinely alarming. For every 10 micrograms per cubic meter increase in long-term exposure to PM2.5 pollutants, an individual's relative risk of dementia increases by a significant 17%.
17%, just from a 10 microgram increase. And PM 2.5, that's the really fine particulate matter, right? From traffic, industry.
Exactly. Tiny airborne particles, often from vehicle exhaust, industrial emissions, burning fossil fuels, small enough to get deep into the lungs, even the bloodstream.
This study adds critical, really undeniable evidence to the public health risks associated with chronic air pollution. It makes such a compelling case for urgent policy interventions to improve air quality, especially in urban and industrial areas worldwide. It's a direct link between environmental quality and cognitive health that we cannot ignore this.
No, absolutely not. Finally today, let's turn to a powerful and joyous expression of societal values. Hundreds of thousands participated in Berlin's massive annual Pride Parade.
Ah, Berlin Parade, always huge.
Yeah, on July 26th, the city streets just came alive, techno beats, vibrant rainbow flags.
Yeah.
It was a really powerful and joyous public demonstration of inclusivity and solidarity.
Yeah, those celebrations are fantastic, and it's a testament not only to Germany's progressive stance on LGBTQ plus rights, but also, I think, to the global momentum for diversity and acceptance. These parades, they're rooted in the history of fighting for equality, but they continue to serve as these vital platforms for visibility, for advocacy, for community building. They showcase how societies are evolving to embrace and celebrate a wider range of identities and expressions.
It's a great visual reminder.
It really is a powerful reminder that while, yes, challenges definitely remain, progress towards a more inclusive world is consistently being made, often through these very visible and collective expressions of societal values.
So what does this all mean for you, listening? From, the intricate challenges of global aid delivery and the significant shifts in political power to vital new health discoveries and powerful social movements, we've covered a vast amount of ground today. Our aim, as always, is to provide you with unbiased, factual information distilled into clear insights, so you can truly form your own well-informed understanding of the world.
And maybe this raises an important question for all of us to think about. How do these seemingly disparate events, everything from a localized border skirmish in Southeast Asia to a landmark climate ruling from the UN or a protest half a world away in Malaysia, how do they ultimately shape our individual futures and our collective responsibilities?
It's all connected.
It really is. Think about the profound interconnectedness of it all, how a shift in one region can ripple across the world, influencing everything from literally the air we breathe to the stability of our economies and even the future of technology that impacts every single one of us.
We truly hope this deep dive has given you a clearer, maybe more nuanced picture of today's complex world. To ensure you're always in the know, you can follow US on Spotify to listen to this podcast every morning at 8 a.m. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep making sense of the world around you.